Hello friends and welcome back to my channel, Ao Coding Kare. I hope you all are healthy and safe, and I apologize. I know it's been a while since I uploaded the last video. Apologies, been extremely busy on the personal side of the life, so I'll try to make sure I put some time aside to work on the videos and put them regularly. Uh, but yes, let's continue our learning journey into Introduction to Python. And in today's class, we are going to start with loops in Python. This is going to get interesting now. All right. So what is loops in Python? The repeated steps are also known as loops in Python. In loops, what we basically do is we set a variable as an iteration variable, and the value of this variable changes every time it iterates or repeats, right? So the for loop basically is, uh, uh, I would say it's like it's used to perform this function of repeating a task again and again, right? And you can use this loop so that it runs for a specific number of times. You know how many times you want to run that, right? So for example, you have to say print something, print some details from a database, and you want to repeat that action. You want to keep printing again and again until you reach, like, say, a list of 1,000 users. So you know there are 1,000 users, right? So you have a defined set of data, and you have a for loop that you can use to pull something out of it and perform some task on it, some data set out of it and perform some task on it, right? So a for loop is used to repeat a block of code a specific number of times, ideal when the number of iteration is known. So like we know it's a list of, say, 1,000 users, 2,000 users, or we can say a bottle of chocolates which has, say, 20 chocolates in it. We have the count already written, so we know a definite value if we have to perform something, right? So for the chocolate box, if I have to write a command or a task where I'm saying open the box, take one chocolate, eat it, close the box, again open the box, take the second chocolate and eat it. So you're performing a repeated action, but you know how many times you're going to perform because you know that there are 20 chocolates in that bottle, right? So that is exactly how we use the for loop for in Python. So what is the basic syntax of it, how we use that when we are writing program? So we say for, which is a keyword, and then you say variable in range. So variable is again going to be defined by you. So variable can be anything, like if you're tracking some number, then you say variable num, or if you're tracking, say, some strings, then you use a string character like name. So you're tracking name. So whatever variable you want to use, and then you have in, the word in, and then range, and in the range you define start, stop, and step. So what the start, stop, and step means is from where your range is starting, where your range should stop, and if there is a step required in your range. So what exactly that means, we will see that. We'll basically, what we'll do is we'll write a few codes, and then we'll try to understand what is happening in that code. Okay, let me bring up the editor. Okay, let's create a new file. So we'll say loops underscore for, and let's write now for I in range. I'm just calling in a variable by name I here, and then I'm giving my range. I'm saying 1, 2, 6, and then I'll just leave it as there, as it is, and I'll not give any step there. Then I go inside the for loop. Now I have to define what should happen in each of those for loop when it runs. In that each iteration that it runs, what should happen is now defined inside the for loop. So here we are going to just say print I. So see, so when we executed this code, it what it does is the first time it executes this command I in range, it checks the start. It says, okay, the start value for I is 1. So what it does is it puts the value of 1 in this variable I. Then it goes inside and says, what is the next thing to perform? It says, okay, you have to print I. So it prints I. The first value of I, it prints. Then it goes out from here and goes back into the for loop, and then it says for I in range, the 1 is done. So what is the next character? 2. So it picks up 2, then it goes inside, prints 2, and then again comes out. So it does this till it reaches 6, but when it reaches 6, it it will stop the for loop, because now the the way the stop works is it's always -1 from whatever value has been defined. So if we are defining here 6, that means the last value is 5. 6 minus 1, 5. So if you say value is 10, then it is 10 minus 1, 9. So if you say 20, 20 minus 1, 19. So that is how the stop value works. And the start value is something that you can define yourself. But if you don't define this, for example, if I remove this, now you'll see the difference, right? If I remove this and I'm saying range 6 and I run this, see, it runs from 0, right? So by default, the start value is always 0. So if you don't define it also, it is always taken as 0. The one you enter is the stop value, and you don't need to add a step to, right? But if you want to add a step, now what you need to do, now you'll say 6 comma, I'm saying, I say 2 here. I have to define the start. Now see what happened here. So it started with 0, then it went to the next character, which is 1, but it saw that there is a 2 step defined, which means it'll skip the first step, the second step, which is the 0. The first it checks 0, and then it checks for 1. This is 1, which is the second value that it comes across. It skips that value and it goes to 2 and it prints 2. Then after 2 it goes to 3, then again it skips 3 and then it goes to 4. So it takes a 2 step. So it skips the character in between, the number in between, and goes to the next number. So if I make it 3 here, so after 0 it executes 3, and after 3 it is 4, 5, 6. Again 6 is the stop, so it can't go till there, so it just, the last number it prints is 3, right? So this is how we can execute the for loop. Now, to better understand this, right, let me just do one thing. Let me just pull up the paint here. Okay, if I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? Now what we are doing, we are saying I equals to 1. We have defined I equals to 1. Now when the for loop runs the first time, it puts the value of I, the value of this variable I, as 1, and then it runs the for loop. It goes inside the for loop and it checks what is what is supposed to be done. So it sees that it has to print. So it prints the value of I as 1. Then it goes back into the for loop, and then when it goes back into the for loop this time, what it does is ask I to check the next value. So it goes and checks second 2. So it takes the value 2 and then prints this. Then again it goes back into the for loop. From there it comes to 3 again, and then again does the same thing. So it does the same thing till it reaches 6, but when it reaches 6, it identifies that this is the last number, so it can't execute this, so it stops it just stops at 5. So it doesn't even have to go till 6, right? So the moment it reaches 5, which is 1 minus, it stops there, right? So this is how the for loop basically works. Now we can to further define this in a better way, right? So maybe what we can do is, let's say, just to make it more meaningful. Okay, so see, now what we are doing is we just added a string value count, which helps us understand like this is the count 0, count 1, count 2, count 3, count 4. So every count of that for loop that it runs, right? Maybe let's also look at one more example, right? So saying fruits. Let's say fruits equals to, we create a list, say apple, mm, strawberry, grapes, and mango. Okay, so we are defining so we are defining a variable by name fruits, and we are giving a list of fruits: apple, strawberry, grapes, and mango. So this is how we define a list. I know we have not looked at this, but we will cover this in more detail when we start uh, basically learning the data structures with Python. So that is where we'll come across everything: lists, tuples, and sets, and dictionaries, and how do we use them. So we'll look at that later. But just for an example now, right? We are giving a list of fruits, and what we are doing in this list is we are saying we are going to execute a for loop. So we're going to say for fruit in fruits, going to print I love, comma, fruit. Let me just comment this out. Now let's see what happens here, right? So see what it did now. In the program, first we are defining a variable by name fruits, and we are saying it's a list of fruits. Then we are using our iterate the iteration variable, which is fruit, and we are saying for fruit in the list of fruits, perform this function, right? So perform this print function. So print, what it does, it says I love. First time it goes, checks for the value of fruit in this list. It says apple, then it returns I love apple. Then it goes out. The for loop says again do this. It comes back, looks for the value again, and then it prints I love strawberry. So it is repeating this step again and again in order to perform this action where it is going to print this statement I love with the name of the fruit that is coming from the list. And here we have given a list of 4, so we know that it's going to run for 4 times and it's going to come back with the same result, and once it's done, it's completed, right? How we can do that? We can probably just exit the print, I mean the exit the for loop, and then we can say the for loop has completed. See, so now it came out. So it didn't, if it didn't print this statement every time it ran this, right? So that is where we have to understand that what exactly is happening here is, after it runs this statement, since the for condition is not true yet, what we mean by true is it still has some list values that it has to execute. There is a set number of items that it has to still look for. It re-execute this piece of code. It re-executes again until it meets the criteria. So once it meets the criteria of reaching the last value, then it exits out of the for loop, and then whatever is function it needs to perform outside of it, it starts performing that function. So in this case, we are saying after all these fruits names have been printed, just say the for loop has been completed. Okay. All right. So with that, we will stop this video, and we will in the next video that we will look at more examples of for loop so that we understand for loop in a much better way, and we get a deeper sense of it. All right. Thank you guys. Take care. Bye bye.